virus. It's going up all over the place. We had to call the dog pound to come and pick it up. Okay. But all you people out there on the 8 platforms, we had a lot of traffic from Twitter. So if you guys still want to call in and ask Brett, uh, send in your tweets, especially on Twitter, because that's where we got most of them from. And Brett's going to be on the line. He's going to answer any question you have on the football. And we're going to show you, might as well do that now. Show his picks. He got all 4 right. So if anybody made these bets or parlayed them, because you can take these bets and parlay what you want, or just do the bets flat. So these are should be 4 of them. You got all 4? I only see 2. Oh, I see it. Rams morning line under 48. But so if you want to call in or tweet, matter of fact, can't do both, huh? Because Brett's gonna be on the line. So you can tweet your calls, and Brett's gonna be looking at the monitor, and he's gonna be answering the questions. So go ahead. Anybody want to ask any questions about the Super Bowl? You can do that. And then we're gonna go to a commercial, and then we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna be talking about in my book. It's in the book Winning Ways, Avi. Page 66. It's on the odds, the actual true odds bet, and why you can make this bet once you make a point. And I believe these true odd bets, the casino does have a advantage. They say they don't have an advantage. Yes, they do. They do have an advantage, and I'll show you why. And I do have it in my book. It's on page 66. You can get this book on Kindle it, Google Play. You can download it. You can have it on your phone, or you can get the hard copy. Everything's on blackjack, craps, and roulette. It starts from the beginning if you never played before, and then it goes. If you keep reading it, it goes to advance. So as long as you memorize the percentage and ratios and the odds and what I provide on these games, you will be almost 100% an expert, because you will know the ins and outs, money management, and hedge betting, and you will know the percentages and the true odds bet, and you will also know what a don't bet is, a don't come bet is, and a lay bet is. A lot of people don't know these bets. You can make these bets. You can go on episode 21, 22, and I think it was episode 42. I did talk about these bets, because most casinos only teach you pass line, come bets, field bet, and maybe they might teach you the hard way. They love the proposition bets, and we're going to talk about that, how you use those when you're playing craps. And then I'm going to go into the true odds bets. So right now, if anybody, go ahead and on Twitter or any other platform, but we got a lot of traffic on Twitter. So go ahead and make your tweets on what you think about the game. And is that one there? That's one there. Okay, there's one there. Brett, you can go ahead and call in. What does that say? People are asking me last week. You need glasses.
Convinced losing 10,000 on options trading on sports betting builds character.
Well, not only that, if that's true, that would have been interesting, because you can take that money and hedge bet. You could have broke that down and bet those 4 that Brett hit. You could have won those 4, 250, 2,500 on each one of those bets. Instead of betting 10,000, you can split those bets. Never put your eggs in one basket. It's the same thing with these games. Just because you win a ton of money at craps and you go play roulette, blackjack, or poker, you're using all the money you won from craps. Split it up. If you go to 4 more games, split that up. Whatever money you win. If you win, say $400, put $100 in each game. Don't dump the whole 400 in one game. You can, as long as you understand what the games are and how these ratios and percentages are, and plus what the casino's ratio is. I teach ratios. A lot of people don't know anything about odds or percentages. You should know them, but you don't have to. That's why I'm really big on ratios. Like on the field bet, that field bet is 5.56%. Here comes another one. Brett, you need to call in and answer these questions. These questions are for you. What does it say there? Head bullish, but we've lost a little more than 20,000 in betting and aren't the.
I ain't phased with that.
Yeah, I can bet.
Responding to the guy from before.
Yeah, I can almost see this. The screen's a little far, but Brett, call in. You need to answer this. So anyway, yeah. So since that's 5.56% when 12 and 2 are double, but when it becomes triple, that percentage drops out 2.78%, not 5.56%. But it has nothing to do with you. So that's why I teach ratios. The ratios is 20 ways to lose and only 16 ways to win. So that's the ratio for the casino versus you. So don't get crazy on the field bet. I've seen a lot of people lose money on this bet. I mean, you can see when people throw the dice, some people do hit a lot of field bets. So the way I teach the way to make money on the field bet is, I mean, you can bet $5 or $10. If it's a $10 table, you got to do 10. So bet $10. If you lose the 10, you replace only 10. Don't bet 20. You didn't lose 20. You lost 10. So bet 10. If you win, then you broke out even. You start over, bet another 10. If you lose that, you have to replace it with 10. If you lose that, now you're down 20. Bet $20. If you lose a 20, you have to bet 40. You're eventually going to get it back. And then when you get that back, if you get the 40 back, bet $10. If you win, you beat them. You can do this with a bankroll if you stand there and just an hour or two, and you can do this process, and you can make $10, and then you might make another $10. You might make another $10. I mean, it's grinding, but you at the end of the day, you might make $100. You could do this really quick too. I've seen 7. The most I've ever seen was 10 in a row. That's the most I've ever seen. I was at a table, I think it was Sam's Town a week ago, and there was somebody do 7 in a row. You got to make, if it's $10, you got to make $70. If you want to get crazy, bet $25, you got to make, what is that, $250? But if you make $100, think about this. If you make $100 and you grind it out on the field bet, you can do this in roulette too, betting red, black, even, odd. And if you stop at $100 a day, in 1 month you make $3,000, no taxes. So you can do that too. What is this?
I don't understand it.
Getting a week. Oh, he's talking about the weeks. Brett, you need to call in. These are for you. Yeah, these are increase my weekly. Okay, I see what he's doing. Weekly profits. Yes, next week strong. Yeah, okay, you can do that. He's betting week to week, and you know, win some, lose some, win some, lose some. As long as you make, they say 50%. Brett was 55 for the year. So, but these bets on the field bet you can do. Same thing with roulette. But the roulette is 20 ways to lose and 18 ways to win. So that ratio is a little bit closer for on a roulette. Red, black, even, and odd. You can grind that out and try to make $10, $10, and then when you get to $100, you can get to 80 or 50, and just think about you making just $50 a day doing this, and you can do this probably. I've seen people do that in 10 minutes. But you got to walk away from the table. A lot of people can't do that. But if you do walk away from the table, you make $50 a day and do this every day, you make $1,500 a month tax-free. So these are things you can do. Man, that was on a different screen. That Twitter, that was way over there. I cannot see that one at all. Oh, I see. Brett, you got to call in. Where you at? I got to answer these. These are for you because they ain't for me. Okay, so we're going to have to wait till he calls in. He's probably asleep. Okay, I'm going to talk right now about page 66 in my book. I put this in there because This is true. This is actually true. When a dealer or any of the people in the casino teach you craps, because you can learn craps in the morning. They have classes 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and one of the things that they tell you when you're placing odds on the pass line, you don't have an over camera, right, Aaron? When you're placing odds here, and then you're taking, excuse me, when you're making a bet here on the pass line, and you take odds, okay, they say when you take odds, the casino makes no profit on that or has no advantage. That's not true, because what they mean is that they have to pay out true odds if you take that bet. They have to pay it out. Now, when they say they don't have an advantage, yes, they do, because the point itself, 6 and 8 come up together, paid ratio pays the same, 5 and 9, 4 and 10. Okay, the further out, the harder it is to come up. Now, let's start here on 6 and 8. The odds of you hitting that, it doesn't matter if how much money you got in the back. That doesn't matter. You have to hit it first. So on a 6 and 8, it pays 6 to 5 true odds. So that's exactly what it is. 6 for the casino to win, only 5 for you. So there's the advantage right there on these two numbers for you to hit that. I don't care what it pays. Has nothing to do with you hitting it. You have to hit it. Okay, now we're going to go further out, 5 and 9. This is 3 to 2 or 6 to 4. And that's exactly what it means. 6 ways for the casino to win this bet. Actually, they're both bets because you have to make the bet. So 6 ways for them, only 3 for you. So there's 4 for you. There's 6 ways a casino can win that bet. The dice are against you to win that bet. So there's your advantage. Okay, and then the 4 and 10 are even worse. This one is 2 to 1, or this is 6 to 3. There's 6 ways for the casino to win these bets. In other words, you're 7 out. You're not going to win at all. There's 6 ways that you can lose, and only 3 ways to win. There's the advantage, but they don't say that. They're not talking. They don't go into that detail. The only detail they go into is the casino has no advantage on that bet. Yes, they do. You have to hit it first, and then you can see that the percentage is in their favor for them to win that bet. I don't care if it pays $1,000. You have to hit it first. Think about that. You bet 100 on the pass line, and you take 200 in the back, which will pay you 2 to 1 or 6 to 3. So the casino has 6 ways of you not winning that bet, and you only have 3. That's the advantage. They're talking about the payout. The casino has no advantage on that payout because they have to pay true odds. But the advantage they do have is you got to win the bet first. So that's the advantage. And I have that in my book. It's on page 66, and I explain the whole thing. On the put bet up here, 6 and 8, that's 2.56% for the casino, and the 5 and 9 is 4%, and 4 and 10 is 6.67%. But that has nothing to do with you. These are board odds, or when you make the bet, they are called put bets after the point. Anything you put on a crap table after the point is called a put bet. So that's the percentage for the casino. That's Brett. Okay, Brett's calling in. You there, Brett?
Richard, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. We're waiting for you to. Did you see the tweets on the monitor?
I did see some of them, but most of them were all reaction. They weren't really any in the form of questions, but I did see some of the reaction, especially alluding to the fact that one person in particular lost some money, but they don't care because they know they're going to win it all back. And I actually love that mentality because that kind of sums up sports betting in a nutshell. You win some, you lose some, and sometimes those losses can benefit in the forms of wins down the road if you roll that over.
Yeah, and also all your wins, if there's signers and when you lose, you can go at the end of the year and you can ask the casino for a readout of your losses, and you can actually wash that. Well, that could be washed at the end of the year for taxes up to $5,000. Okay, so what was the second tweet? What were they saying about? Well, no, the one was 30,000. Here we go. What's this one here?
This is just making a comment
Oh, she's making a comment
next year.
for next year. Well,
She wants the Chiefs and the Bears.
Chiefs and Bears. I mean,
yeah.
let's if you go off the future odds, the Chiefs are actually currently looking forward to that Super Bowl 57, at just about a year from now. The Chiefs are currently the odds-on favorite, or at least tied with the Bills at plus 750. The Chicago Bears, if you want to get some crazy value, I'm scrolling down here. They're currently at 66 to 1, so that would translate to plus 6,600. So the payout on that would be immensely big. Imagine putting $600 down on that. You could walk away with some hefty pockets. But the likelihood of the Chicago Bears even making the playoffs next year, well, that's up in the air.
That's why they're 66 to 1.
Absolutely, where the Chiefs stand at a clean league-leading plus 750. So
Yeah.
Chiefs are obviously the odds-on favorite for a reason, but the Bills are right there next to them with good reason. And we'll talk about more of NFL futures as well as college football futures as we move forward into the show here in the next few weeks as we start to make that transition into basketball, where I'll also explain the differences in the basketball and football betting landscapes and how you approach the spread. But it's never too early to bet futures. And the moment of just about a week ago when Super Bowl 56 wrapped up, people were already going to the counter, getting onto their mobile apps, trying to get some action for this coming year. So it's never too early to jump on the future train.
Yeah, that also, that's why I love hedge betting. People should really learn hedge betting because you can take your team, if you think they got a shot, you can take that to win the Super Bowl or the playoff or however you want to bet that. And then the team, which is probably going to be the Chiefs and the Rams probably next year, you can bet on those and you hedge bet against your team. And if you lose your team, you might hit the Rams or the Chiefs next year. So you can hedge bet off those bets.
Absolutely, and you could hedge bet every contender if you wanted to. Maybe you think Rodgers comes back, and this is the year Green Bay finally does it. Maybe you think this is the year Buffalo finally gets over the hump and beats Kansas City in the AFC. Maybe you think, Justin Herbert and the Chargers start to get really hot. They make the playoffs and they make a run.
Sure.
You can make as many bets on these future plays as you want. And if you feel the Rams are going to repeat as champs, it's never too early to jump on them because they actually have probably a better overall value when looking at the teams at the top of the heap. The Rams are currently at 11 to 1 plus 1,100, which, comparatively speaking to 750 for the Bills and Chiefs, already you have better value right there. The Bengals are right behind them at 1,200. So there you go. So there's already opportunities to find value, especially given the fact that the Bengals and the Rams will be contenders, given how they, handle the draft and the free agency period. They should be contenders next year as well. And you could also make bets in the coming months, not right now, but in the next 2 or 3 months when season win totals will be released. You could bet on how many games these teams are going to win. And that's an opportunity where if you're a Bears fan, you could kind of jump at it and be a little bit more aggressive, maybe be a little bit more optimistic, see what that Bears season win total is. If you think they're going to kind of turn the corner with a new coach, year 2 quarterback, then you could bet that. And that probably my projection here sitting in February, those usually come out in early April. I'm guessing the Bears season win total will probably be around the 5-6 range. And if you think they may have a year where they get some of the wheels, that momentum rolling and get those wheels rolling on that train, then you could bet the over on that. So season win totals add a whole new dynamic. Projections to win the division, those will come out. That'll add a whole new dynamic. But the best thing you can do now is just look at the future board. You don't have to jump on it. These will be available all year long. I can't stress that enough. And they will change depending on what these teams do in both the offseason, so that's coming up in March, and what in terms of the free agency market, and then what they do in April in terms of the draft. So these future prices that you see now will fluctuate not only down the road in the offseason, but immediately in the offseason after that draft process and after that free agency process is wrapped up, and we get a better look of what these teams are going to be. This Rams team made all the moves at the trade deadline to become a Super Bowl contender and eventual Super Bowl champions, as we saw a week ago, but they're going to have to make some moves and cut some ties for next year. The Bengals are going to have to, with all their cap space, given the fact that they built their team differently through the draft, the Bengals are either going to have to go into the market to address the offensive line or get some of these young, impressive guards that are coming out this year on what's a pretty strong offensive line draft. So they have to shore up the interior of that O-line. That was the difference in the game last Sunday. As I mentioned, it probably would be at some point in the second half that was. So how do the Rams basically keep their talent, and how do the Bengals but sheer up and solidify the one positional need they still have even as AFC champions? Then you look at the Chiefs. How are they going to address their defensive needs? Do they get a big free agent or a big first-round draft pick? Buffalo is one of the most well-balanced teams in the NFL, let alone the AFC. Who do they draft to kind of try to get them over the next hump since they can't seem to get past Kansas City? Do they bring in a difference maker who finally allows them to do just that? So these future prices, while already understandable, looking at some of these teams at the top of the heap, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Rams, the Bengals, the Packers, the Niners, a lot of quarterback questions to be answered there in the offseason. Tampa Bay would be much higher on this radar had Brady not retired. The Steelers would be much higher on the radar if Ben Roethlisberger didn't retire. You have the Ravens and Lamar Jackson looking to bounce back. The Colts are a really good roster, but still have some concerns about the quarterback position, just like Cleveland, concerns about that position moving forward despite having a lot of pieces. New Orleans is in a complete rebuild, still haven't found their quarterback. Sean Payton is gone. There are a lot of questions to be answered, and a lot of these questions will be answered sooner rather than later because of the free agency and the draft coming up this spring. So what I will recommend to do is sit and look at some of these teams at the top of the heap that even before all of those teams come into play, sitting here today in late February, you could just tell those teams, given their quarterbacks and their coaches, will be contenders. But some of these other teams, some of these dark horses, then I'd suggest you come back and look at this future board, and then where you could find anywhere, you could find it in any mobile app, any sports book, any website that covers betting. Then you come back after the draft, look at the future board and see how these favorites are different, but also see somehow how these lower tier teams who have those like Chicago Bears type of odds, see how they map out now given the changes they've made. Yes, exactly. The Bears. The Bears. But that's why it's interesting, because it's never too early to look ahead, and it's not so much you do close the book on the season before, but you keep tabs on what happened the season before. And often what happened the season before combined with the off-season schedule, that helps you get a better gauge of what's going to happen to these teams coming in the fall. Because even before the Rams made those moves at the trade deadline this season, last year at this time they were trying to determine what would be that major move that would get them over the hump. That wound up being acquiring Matthew Stafford in the trade and getting rid of Jared Goff. So teams are really going to start planting the seeds now in free agency and in the draft, and we'll see those flower as they did for the Rams and the Bengals, respectively.
Yeah, Brett, on those four that you hit, you were correct. Did you bet on any of those?
Yes, I did. A few of them. And I'll actually really quick go through how I mapped out here or how I panned out over the course of Super Bowl weekend. In terms of the props, I went 4-2. I hit on the Rams' first score of the game. I'll hit on the ones I hit. Or I'll touch on the ones I hit first. So I had Rams first score of the game at plus 160. Odell Beckham scores. That one immediately cashes. I have Leonard Floyd recording a sack. Yes, at plus 130. So both of those were good value and very, very likely outcomes for me in terms of that prop bet hitting. And I was fortunate where both of them did. I also had, looking at this here, I had the Rams sack over. I thought, given the combination of Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and all those defensive tackles, I assumed at some point that sack total set at 6.5 would go over, and it did. It finished directly over, so it was a close break, but it was at 7. And then the other prop I hit on was the T. Higgins over for reception yardage. Obviously, T. Higgins had a field day early on, gave Jalen Ramsey a lot of trouble. One of those touchdowns was a result of a controversial no call where it should have been offensive pass interference. But either way, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins looked like they were going to be a problem early on before that Rams pass rush really pinned their ears back and got on fire in the second half. So I was fortunate, and that's what's significant about these props. They're circumstantial. So they hit at a certain point in the game. They don't necessarily have to tell the whole story of the game. Early on, it was looking like the Rams weren't going to hit that sack total, but in the second half, once that pass rush started to determine the course of the game, it did. First score of the game for the Rams is easy because you're just betting what's going to happen ultimately, likely, in the first quarter of the game, those first couple of minutes. In terms of the whole game at large, those were my bigger plays. I just wanted to touch on the props first because it's a little bit more nuanced, and I wanted to explain it in more detail. So I have those 4 hitting, and all I needed to do was once they hit, I was good. The rest of the game didn't matter. All I needed to do there was hold out to see how the Bengals with the spread would pan out, and that wound up winning for me as well. So the ones I hit on Bengals 4.5. I picked the Rams to win. I did not play it, but I did recommend it on your show. So for anyone who did fire on the Rams on the money line, you would have won that one as well. So I like Bengals against the spread. I played that. I didn't play the under, but I leaned the under, so I gave that as a pick as well. To do it, you're basically your I guess you could say your own discretion, I guess is the best way to phrase that. So I gave the under as the game sailed beneath the 48.5. I thought it would. It barely did, but I had a feeling that it would just because I thought the game would be a lot more defensive than people let on. So I had Bengals plus 4.5. The under hit, I did not bet it. Rams money line hit, I did not bet it, even though I picked both of those just off of my best judgment. But Bengals plus 4.5, that was my official spread ATS pick against the spread pick. I hit on that. The first score of the game prop, Rams plus 160, Leonard Floyd recording a sack at plus 130. And then I also hit, like I said, on the Rams sack total, on the over at 6.5. And then I hit on T. Higgins' yardage total. I thought he would be a big factor in the game, as he proved to be, especially early on. So those are the 4 props I hit on. The 2 I didn't hit on, I have no regrets about it all, given the fact that I liked Aaron Donald to win MVP at plus 1,400. You give me 14-1 odds on Aaron Donald winning that award, and given how close he did, I get it, close no cigar, only counts in horseshoes, all those cliches. But given the fact it was a 14-1 value type of play with those odds, you throw $5-10 on it, you lose that $5-10 on a play like that, where you could make the strong case that he should have been the Super Bowl MVP, all respect to Cooper Kupp. I have no regrets about laying that and taking the loss in the Aaron Donald to win MVP, because here we are a week later and people are still arguing him to have that award. And I think for years to come, people will continue to make that case. Again, all respect to Cooper Kupp, had one of the all-time great receiving seasons, but that game changed. That game completely swung in favor of the Rams once Aaron Donald really pinned his ears back and took it upon himself to make something happen, because we saw it. When Aaron Donald was double and triple teamed, what happened? It allowed Leonard Floyd and Von Miller and these other guys along the defensive front to really make their impact on the game. So Aaron Donald's significance allowed the Leonard Floyd sack to hit for my prop. Aaron Donald's significance allowed the sack total for the Rams to hit. I like that prop as well. And even though he didn't win MVP, he had an MVP-type effort to where I'm not going to sit here and complain about losing a 14-1 Aaron Donald play for just a few bucks, which is basically just drinking money and nothing more, especially given the fact that he borderline, or you could even make the case, was the co-MVP. Again, I get it. You don't count moral victories in betting, but 14-1 odds is something that I do not mind losing on. And then Kendall Blanton to score a touchdown in the game. That was at plus 240. Love the value on that one. I thought he would find the end zone. In fact, with that Rams to score first of the game with that plus 60 touchdown, I actually thought that may have been Kendall Blanton in that case. Given the attention put on Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham in the red zone, I thought Kendall Blanton, who was so good in the NFC Championship game against San Francisco, I thought he would be the one to score the Rams' first touchdown. So I thought essentially 2 props. Now, you can't parlay props, so I didn't parlay these, but I have basically picked both of these props on the show last week, Richard, with the mindset that they would actually hit at the same time. I thought the first score of the game at plus 160 would be to Kendall Blanton at plus 240 to pretty much kill 2 birds with 1 stone. One of those hit, but once it was revealed to be Odell Beckham, that wasn't the case. However, since you can't parlay props, my money for Kendall Blanton to score that touchdown was still good throughout the entirety of the game. And even though he didn't score first, I thought at some point he would find the end zone. Unfortunately, he never did for my overall betting portfolio on the weekend. So if there was one loss that I guess you could say I took in the teeth that I didn't like, it was the Kendall Blanton scoring a touchdown. Again, this game was very, very solid defensively for both teams, so I didn't expect a lot of scoring, but I expected him to find the end zone, and he didn't. But given the fact I went 4-2 on my props, and really when you count the one of the 2 that I lost was paper thin in terms of me losing it, I can't walk away from that Super Bowl weekend too upset. And here I am a week later thinking back, and, it was a damn good game after a damn good NFL season, probably the best NFL postseason we've ever seen. And if I could walk away, 6-2 or I should say, 5-2 on the plays overall, not counting the two I suggested in terms of the Rams win, in terms of the under, but throwing in that Bengals plus 4.5 and those props. Pretty successful Sunday, and I'm happy that anyone tuning in to the show on our preview special last Saturday, I'm hoping they walked away thinking, maybe those I'll try to dabble in myself. And if they did, they walked away successful too. And if you were on the wrong side of the coin, well, like some of these tweets have been indicating, there are plenty more opportunities. And the first opportunity starts with the future board.
Yeah, the only play I got upset at is when the refs didn't catch who was it? Grab the mask, and they ended up getting a touchdown.
The T. Higgins play, and that's an interesting point that you bring that up, Richard, because in a game where they really let a lot of things slide, such as that Jalen Ramsey T. Higgins, controversial no call, in a game where they let so much of that go in terms of the receivers and the defensive backs battle in the secondary, it's ironic how those calls late in the game, the one on Logan Wilson, the linebacker, was the quote unquote holding, defensive holding on Cooper Kupp. Some of the other ones we saw late in the game there that would seem to be completely missed or completely invisible earlier in the game. It was interesting how they were called late, and I don't think it was a form of a makeup call for the the Rams getting a bone throw to them after what happened in the Jalen Ramsey occurrence. I don't think it was so much that as much as it was classic sports karma. You take some blows, you give some blows, and sometimes if you get a break early, the football gods will come back full circle and give you the 180 later in the game. The Rams got away, or the Bengals got away with that touchdown with T. Higgins, with the no call on Jalen Ramsey, and they got away with the controversial call that was actually flagged with the Logan Wilson play on Cooper Kupp. So it was one of those things where it was more so just timing. The T. Higgins play or no call came at an occurrence in the game where it wasn't as, I guess you could say, quote unquote, crucial. It wound up being crucial at that time, but in the grand scheme of things, the one that happened late with Wilson and Kupp wound up being much more backbreaking. And next thing you know, Matthew Stafford's doing what he's done all season long and finding Cooper Kupp in the end zone, and then it's upon Aaron Donald and the pass rush to seal the deal from there, and that's exactly what happened. So definitely an interesting game where it sucks the officials came into play when they did, but at the same time, earlier in the game they didn't come into play, and that aspect was in one way. That aspect affected one team and then affected another in two different ways, I guess you could say. So it was just one of those occurrences where it's just how the coin fell, and the Bengals were on the wrong side of it in that instance.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what team the Rams quarterback. What did he play 14 years on?
Detroit, Stafford, yeah, Detroit, and that's another interesting thing.
Yeah, 14
how
years.
Are we gonna? Yeah, and how are we going to gauge him moving on? I mean, he was. We always wondered, was he the reason why the Lions weren't advancing? And it turns out, no, it's the other way around. The Lions were the reason Stafford wasn't advancing in his career. As far as, despite having those great stats, he didn't have those career accolades that some of his other peers in this past era have had. He goes to a organization that has a much more solidified culture and has a much more modern way of doing things. He goes there in a trade, while Goff, who was very much kind of rode the wave of that culture and that organization. But when it came upon him to make the plays and be the difference in the game, he proved he was not capable, as we saw in the Super Bowl with the Rams just 3 years ago. 3 years later, they're in that same situation. They build their team under a similar circumstance, but the one outlying factor is Matthew Stafford. In 1 year, he goes from being a perennial loser in Detroit with Megatron and Jim Caldwell and doing everything he could. Next thing you know, he's a Super Bowl champ, and here we are this past week in the aftermath of that game debating if he's a Hall of Famer. And that's obviously a debate that could go onwards for the rest of his career. We'll see how that pans out. But either way, it's significant that just like the Bengals, and it's significant in 2 years, hell, in 1 year, they could go from a 4-win team to the AFC champions. The Rams could go from a perennial contender to the best team in football just off that one move. And again, the seasoning of Odell Beckham and Von Miller at midseason was crucial. It was huge, and that proved to be true in the game. Von Miller has 2 sacks. Just, sprinkled some more greatness on top of his Hall of Fame career. Odell Beckham, despite going down with that unfortunate non-contact knee injury, he was able to show that he still had a lot left in the tank after that abysmal stint in Cleveland. So that was big. but that was ultimately the icing. The cake was Matthew Stafford, and you just said it all, Richard. 14 years in Detroit, and he can never win a playoff game, and here he is, and he wins 3 straight, and then the Super Bowl. And just like that, has the same amount of Super Bowls in one appearance as Aaron Rodgers does. So, and we talk about Aaron Rodgers being the best of his generation, one of the best of all time. And just like that, Matthew Stafford comes in with this team 1 year and wins it. Now, again, circumstances are different in Green Bay and L.A. as far as how these teams are built and the way these organizations function. But it's still it's just very reflective of how things can change so quickly in the NFL. And that's why, looking forward into NBA betting, it'll be interesting to see how the big move we just saw at the NBA trade deadline with Ben Simmons going to Brooklyn and James Harden going over to Philadelphia. How is that going to affect the East, given the fact that many will say the favorites in the East are still the Milwaukee Bucks, the defending champions? So there's all these type of things that where we start to see the modern-day approach of sports, whether it be in basketball, football, baseball, with what the Dodgers try to do at the trade deadline. We're starting to see now how crucial it is to not just make moves in the offseason, but make moves during the season. And when those kind of come together and everything kind of culminates, that's when championships are won. And sure, you could do it the old-fashioned way by doing it through the draft, but it just shows there's no one clear-cut way of doing it.
Yeah, Brett, can you read that tweet there?
Yes, I can. It says, Bruce, Reggie, Aaron Donald, LT, and Dion. Quarterbacks wouldn't have much time to think, let alone get rid of the balls in game much. I'm assuming this tweeter's alluding to the great defensive players of all time. He laid out a defensive line there, including Bruce Smith, Reggie White, Aaron Donald, and Lawrence Taylor. That's essentially the greatest defensive line of all time right there, other than maybe a few additional names you could throw in there. But, I mean, that's really the reaction. Because Von Miller, I mentioned him, he already had his key moment a couple years ago when he was Super Bowl MVP with that all-time great unit in the Broncos. It was starting to look like Aaron Donald, despite playing in a game, like I said 3 years ago, when he was Defensive Player of the Year, it was beginning to look like maybe Aaron Donald goes in that Dan Marino, Tony Gonzalez, LaDainian Tomlinson, Bruce Smith type of territory as one of the all-time great players to never, maybe even the greatest player, to never win a ring. And as of last Sunday, he does not have to worry about that. That's why, moments like these are so big. A defensive tackle that isn't as dependent on a Super Bowl title as a quarterback is in terms of his Hall of Fame evaluation. Aaron Donald sits as the best player of his generation and one of the best players of all time regardless. But now that he has that ring, like the Ray Lewis Lewis's, the Lawrence Taylors, the Reggie Whites, the Deion Sanders, those all-time great defensive players, the Rod Woodsons, Ronnie Lotts, who are able to get that ring, that puts him in a separate conversation where it transcends defensive tackles, it transcends defensive football. He just sits as one of the all-time great football players of all time, resume and talent combined, and both being considered.
Yeah, you mentioned Ronnie Lott. I actually went to Eisenhower High School, and he was a sophomore when I was a senior. And
oh wow!
Oh yeah!
You never told me that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he actually hyperextended my brother's knee when they were wrestling, and Joseph said, "I'll never forget this guy. He hyperextended my knee. He's gonna own me." I said, yeah,
I know, right?
I don't know if they
Hall
did.
of Fame career.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if they renamed Eisenhower Lott Stadium. I don't know if they ever did that, but that was at
that'd be a good
in Rialto. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be a good one.
Yeah. He only acknowledged me one time. I was sitting on a bench at lunchtime. He came up to me. All he said was, "Della Torre." That's all he said to me. That's because they knew me for martial arts at the high school.
I love that. I love that though, because at least he knew your name. It'd be better if he went up to you and said, "Hey, have I seen you somewhere before?" At least he knew your name. And if you could be known, Richard, for martial arts, that's a good thing because as far as I'm concerned, that's the guy you always wanted to be on the good side of in high school. I always was. Because I wrestled and I trained in some stuff here and there. But the guys who were like dedicated, like you, went at a very young age and had had black belts and like second-degree black belts in certain disciplines by the time they were sophomores and juniors in high school. Yeah, I made sure to get on those guys' friendly side.
Yeah, that was a big part of my life. Martial arts was huge part of my life, and I ate, drank, slept, woke up.
Yep.
That's all I did for probably 5 years straight, and then
Which
finally,
is awesome.
and there's a lot of people later on through the years, took martial arts because of me, and I found that out. Quite a few people that when I was in Eisenhower, after they got out, they actually did take martial arts, and I've seen them through the years. They could become cops. They were undercover. There was a couple that were, security worked at the malls, and I knew them.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, "I'm here because of you." So I just inspired them because of all the martial.
That's awesome.
It was just all the things I knew about martial arts because I just didn't study one. I studied quite a few. From everything I can think, even the wrestlers at Eisenhower, 7 of them try to jump me for fun, and I use their body to anytime they come at me, I would use their body and throw them away. They couldn't get me, and then I said, "Hey, you guys get rough, I'm gonna have to kick you guys." And they go, "No,
Well, that's
no,
why-
no, no."
Yeah, and that's why, you know, combat sports translate to sports like football and even just other non-collision and contact sports in general, because so much of the muscle memory and the body control and the timing and the fluidity, the footwork translates to other things. And that's why when we're living in like a time where you're starting to see athletes cross-train more and more, you're seeing more pro athletes dabble in mixed martial arts training and, you know, boxing and grappling and even elements of like more of like a Wing Chun, you know, capoeira type of martial arts where it's more about the form and, you know, the way and the overall fluidity and the technique rather than the actual damage and the brutality of it. So different martial arts have many different philosophies, and that's myself. I love covering the fight game so much, specifically mixed martial arts, because over the years, you know, the 20, 30 years of that sport's existence and of its evolution, you've seen it where at one point it was the disciplines, the wrestler versus the boxer, the kickboxer versus the taekwondo guy, you know, the karate guy versus the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. And now we're seeing overall totality and a combination of these arts and disciplines being brought together, being synthesized for all athletes competing in that sport right now, especially at its highest level. And we'll dabble in that as well. The off season and the NFL off season to me is a time to obviously reflect on the year that just happened, the year moving forward, but it always usually falls around a time where the fight game and the fight calendar really heats up. So in between the basketball landscape and the boxing and MMA landscape, we're going to have a lot more to talk about in these next few weeks, Richard. And I just find it fitting that you bring up martial arts right there, because I'm going to explain the significance of betting the fight game and how it differs from betting something that has to do with teams and has to do with scores and points and overs and unders and all that. Fight game, that's all thrown out the window, and it's a lot more nuanced approach. But at the same time, it's a lot more simple because it's one person versus another person in either a ring or a cage, and you kind of cut a lot of the other stuff that is attached to basketball, football, et cetera, you cut that stuff out of it. So I'll explain the significance of that in weeks moving forward as well.
Yeah, when Ronnie Lott was playing, I remember they were talking about it on Monday Night Football one time. Some of the teams were hiring martial arts that knew, like the circular motion, like, you know, you use the person's body to maneuver them, and you can move them using your weight, using certain angles on the body. And I remember when they were talking about that, I says, I wonder if Ron Lott's going to remember me and give me a plug and say maybe they'll hire me and I'll come on and teach them. I never got that phone call.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Richard, if you can remember your name, he can at least give you a call, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's a great point you bring, because I mean, again, the positioning, the leverage, the momentum, using an opponent's body weight against you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we see that as being such a crucial factor in so many martial arts. And I mean, I was a lineman. I played at the collegiate level. I played small school ball. But even so, those little tiny nuanced things, because it's a game of inches anyway. I know that's a cliche, but it's true. So if you could do anything to get your opponent off center, his center of gravity somehow tweaked to use to your momentum, if you could somehow get leverage on him, especially if it's some of those bigger offensive linemen. I played defensive line, so I had a lot of those, you know, circular, fluid techniques that you learn in even day one wrestling, boxing, martial arts classes. I applied those to the football field in the trenches when I was, you know, trying to work my hands and trying to get past and get through those big guards and tackles. So there really are a lot of parallels. There really is a lot of crossover. We're going to get to the point where it wouldn't even surprise me if soccer players, golfers, and tennis players even incorporate that into their training, just because, again, even if it doesn't directly apply to the skills and the fundamentals of what you're doing, the benefits still carry over in the form of the muscle memory, the control, the strengthening of the core, you know, the hand-eye coordination, the center of gravity, getting low, finding leverage, finding openings. it opens up a whole new dynamic and kind of gives you a whole new understanding of how sports works and how like the element of human contact works. And I love how here in the last 10 minutes of the show we're getting all philosophical with it with martial arts, where this is meant to be a Super Bowl recap. But you know what? I mean, it is fitting that we mention it, because now that football's over, I think we're going to be able to touch on some of the other things that apply to the world, and not just betting, but sports at large, and see how they come into play. It's easy to get caught up in the football excitement, and rightfully so. It's the number one TV product in the country when looking at both pro and college football. But there's, lots of other things to dissect here. And as you go along, you realize that the NFL offseason really is that long, but it's that long for a reason, because, it's a long campaign from September to February. So that reshuffling period in between is also going to have to be inevitably long as well.
Yes, and also I noticed in football, mainly football, because it's another thing. People go, well, how do you know all this stuff, Richard? Well, I love athletics, doing athletic things. I also teach gymnastics and trampoline at high school. I actually taught 3 years. I was a TA at Eisenhower, gymnastics and trampoline, and I noticed a lot of the football players use a lot of gymnastics in football. I noticed that.
Yeah, and that's what's so funny, because there's this stereotype of, like whenever there was like a male, for the longest time there were stereotypes of the male cheerleader, and even back then, because you don't have that now, because again, just the way teenagers are now with their consideration of others is just way better, obviously, than when I was in school. And I think we could say that going back generations before me. But I always thought, like, y'all realize how athletic those guys are, right? Like they were doing gymnastics training, they were doing crazy core and stability training. They were more agile than any of the guys on the football team. Like, there is so much technique and fundamental precision to anything in the sports world. And if it involves catching people in midair or hurling your body around in midair, that usually is like the cream of the crop, upper echelon in terms of athleticism. I mean, we saw it in Tokyo this past summer of the Olympics, just how much, reaction was surrounded Simone Biles and her decisions. And I think even in that, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that some of these sports are just so demanding. Some sports you could go to, you could have a normal high school student career, go practice after, play in the games, once or twice a week, and then go on about your life. Maybe if you're a little bit more dedicated or a little bit more passionate or even just more talented, you go on and do that at the college level where it's more magnified and more intense. But there are just some sports that you don't have like a time, a clock for. You don't have like a timetable for. Boxing, gymnastics, some of these sports that require, like swimming, some of these sports, golf, that require an insane amount of precision and technical training. You start that well before you're in middle school or even, in the later years of elementary school. You're starting that at 6, 7, 8 years old, because you have to get that muscle memory down. Football, baseball, basketball, if you're athletic enough and coordinated enough, you could kind of pick those things up. There's other sports where you just can't pick it up. And we've seen that with athletes trying their hand in it. Like whether that be celebrities going into boxing, MMA, or pro wrestlers going into MMA, boxers going into MMA, or MMA going into boxing, you see those nuanced differences because that muscle memory is so important. And that's why, like, it's interesting you bring up the parallel between gymnastics and martial arts. A lot of times those big hulking athletes you see in the football field and the basketball court, they wouldn't be caught dead in the water doing those sports, because despite them knowing how to run and jump and do all these things, again, I was one of them at a minimal level. We don't know how to do those type of things where you see cheerleaders tumbling and you see gymnasts doing all different types of things on both a beam or just on the floor techniques. And of course, fighting, forget about it, that's its own science in its own right. So there are all these things that come into play. So I actually like the fact that you mentioned that, because those are the things that often get lost in the world of sports.
Right. Brett, go ahead and read this one.
I hope. Yeah, we got another tweet. I hope a football team drafts Brawny because I want to watch the sports world burn in complete chaos. Basically, he's alluding to LeBron's son, and LeBron mentioned that earlier this morning. That was kind of the one big headline coming out a Saturday. At least that anything that was like non-Olympic related as those wrap up. But LeBron said he wants to end his NBA career playing with his son. Brawny is only a few years removed from that happening. We're kind of following his high school career. Now we've seen LeBron attend the games, be like, his personal coach, and just being very involved in his life, but at the same time not overly involved to where Bronny's going to be able to make his own decision moving forward in terms of the college route. But what LeBron is looking forward to after that, when Bronny gets drafted, where is he going to go? And LeBron basically made it clear this morning, say wherever he gets drafted, that's where I want to go. So a lot of people are expecting in the next few years the father-son duo to play in the NBA, something of the likes of Ken Griffey Jr. and his father playing together for the Mariners. So something we haven't seen in a long time. It's something the sports world would absolutely blow up for. And I think when we get closer, it'll be something that realistically very, very well could happen. So I think that tweet's more so just alluding to the fact that if he chose football rather than basketball, then LeBron's blueprint plan would kind of go out the window. But I think it's safe to say that the odds of Bronny choosing basketball are pretty high. We got another tweet here from Nick Baum, who was a cheerleader on the stage with Steph Curry during the segment of the All-Star show. That I cannot answer. Although,
Yes.
that has definitely been making the rounds.
Basketball.
Yeah, no, but
know.
that's been making the rounds on Twitter because of, again, one thing NBA does handle really well is their All-Star game, making it a TV event. They know that the game itself, like all All-Star games, really won't deliver from an entertainment standpoint. But if you surround that game with festivities, the three-point, dunk contest, all these different things that happen, the celebrity All-Star game, these different events that lead up to the All-Star game, it's like a true weekend package. So the NBA does everything they can to promote that and kind of milk that as much as they can. So usually, given the fact that the way they cover the NBA on TNT, which is one of the best sports broadcasting products in the industry and has been for a long time, with that whole Inside the NBA crew, they do as much as they can with All-Star Weekend with that panel to kind of, just garner attention. And obviously Steph Curry was there earlier today doing just that. So that was what that tweet was alluding to. Either way, we're going to get, at this point in the season, we're going to start to see how, and you'll even notice those differences in how the NBA is covered compared to how the NFL is covered, and both what makes those sports different is what makes them great. And now, obviously, the NBA is a clear-cut number two than the NFL, but given what the NBA has done in recent years and given how the NBA likes to appeal to its demographic on its own terms, it really shows how, both sports function differently but are ultimately successful for similar reasons because they relentlessly appeal to their target demo, and they always give them some type of content throughout the week to basically tweet and post on Facebook about. Because that's what it all, at the end of the day, social media attention is what matters. We know this, and hell, even in working for Go Live Vegas. So it's one of those things where you're going to start to see a lot of things pop up that may not be directly sports related, but will have a loose sports connection.
Okay, Brett, we're going to...
There's another one on there real quick.
Yeah, he was, but I'm a cheerleader at what? Ken.
Hey,
yeah.
this is a master class right now, and how if you
Australia.
if you scour through Twitter like our TD is doing right now, you'll find just about anything. But
Okay.
hey, whatever gives us content and talking points. But again, I'm happy I was able to join you via phone call. I appreciate your time, Richard. I hope I didn't
appreciate
interrupt
your
you.
time.
Yeah, it looked like I hope I didn't interrupt too much
No.
when you were doing your demonstration, but I'm happy I got to share my thoughts and reactions to the game. And again, if any of you fired on my prop plays and picks for the Super Bowl last Saturday, I'm happy it worked out for you. Again, if you fell on the wrong side of the coin, my condolences. But again, we have a lot of sports to bet for the rest of this year. A lot of sports.
Ain't going nowhere. All right, Brett. Hopefully
No,
we
sir.
see you. You feel better, and we'll see
I
you
appreciate
here
that.
next Saturday on Full Tilt.
You got it, guys. Thank you, Richard.
All right. See you then. Okay, that was Brett Lawson. He's a sports analyst. He's really good. He used to work for ESPN, and he got part-time with Brett. Was it Musburger? What was his name? Yeah, he used to work part-time, and when COVID came, they laid everybody off. So I don't know if they're calling anybody back, but that's who used to work at ESPN. Okay, I'm going to show you guys this again because we got a lot of new people watching, and a lot of people don't know this about dice. This is called a die, and this is a die. You put them together, they're dice. So when one die goes off the table, don't say the dice went off the table because they didn't both go off, only one went off. So when you put the dice together, when you, a lot of people just see dice. They don't understand when dice are set up. In my book, there are ways to set up dice at those certain numbers, but you have to practice that for about 6 months before you go to the casino. And the table has to be the same size, 14 feet, 16 feet, 10 feet. You have to practice on that table so your mechanics of the throw and your muscle memory stays the same. And you actually would grip the dice. You would grip the dice like this. Where's it at? You grip it like this, and you would have one thumb in the back. And when you toss them, they actually stay, and they don't move. You're not supposed to do all this. It should stay the same, and then they hit, they come back, and they would land. So I'm going to show you. You see there, you see, let me see if I can do this. You see a 7, and then you turn it, is another 7, and another 7, and another 7. And if I open it up, a 7, and then if I was to do this, a 6, and then an ace on the top, it's not a 1, it's an ace. They're all 7s because the dice is set up for 7. You see how they're just set up 7, 7, 7. So when you toss them, you try to get 7. A lot of people don't know this about dice. That's why this game 7 is a dominant number. Now, it doesn't mean that you ain't going to keep throwing points. I always told people that I believe that when you get a point, it's usually 3.5, 7 out. Usually it's 3.5. Now, there's some people that say it's 4. Some people say it's 5. I don't think so. I think it's about 3.5. So remember that. But that doesn't mean that's going to happen. So you remember. Now, in my book, I do show you, put it up here. I do show you, see the 7? Now, if I was to do this, and I was to put the 4 and the 4 together, and you turn it, because you can turn the dice, and now what do you see? You see 11, you see ace deuce, you see ace deuce, and you see 11. So the dice are set up to fall on this. Like I said, you have to keep practicing this. So to get the, I did do it for a while. It does work, but you gotta remember, when you set dice, you have to do this very, very quick, because once you take too long and the boxman sees you making points, they're gonna say something. So you always memorize the die. You see the deuce, now on the bottom of that's a 5. You should know that. On the 4, on the bottom that's a 3. You should know that. So once they give you the dice, both dice, you see the ace, it's not a 1, that's an ace. The ace goes to the left. This is the way I devise it in my book. Ace goes to the left. You get the other die, and it goes ace to the left. So now both aces are to the left. And once you do that, you can start turning the dice both, and you can turn them really quick. And then you can make your numbers really fast. The 7s, see all the 7s and 7. So you can do that. And all this information is in my book. It's in the book Winning Ways. Now, I didn't go into too much stuff because this really was supposed to be a post-Super Bowl episode 45. Okay, you can go to my, you can go to Delatory 360 Entertainment, and you can see all my videos. There's even videos on horse racing, 7 through 10. I have poker, there's slot machines, there's Keno. But the main games in this book are blackjack, craps, and roulette. And don't forget, smash that like button. Tell your people, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification so you get all the not only this platform, but we got other shows on Go Live Vegas Studios. So you can go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna say goodbye here. Full Tilt Vegas, Go Live Vegas Studios, and we'll see you next Saturday. Good dice tossing.